The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we are coming to you live from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. Thrilled to be here with you on this Wednesday morning, and we've got a lot of stuff that we're going to cover. And if you particularly like it when I pop off, welcome. There's much to pop off about. I want to start by telling you it's Wednesday, and usually on Wednesday we do things a little bit differently. And we generally have Dr. Doreen Grant-Boucher here with us in the morning. And I misspoke and said that she was going to be here this morning, and I was apparently I missed an email that she is not in. I don't even think she's in the country. She's not here in any case, and somehow I missed out on that. It's okay because there's so much to talk about, and something in particular very near and dear to my heart that we need to talk about, and then I might pop off a little bit about. But a little bit later on in the show, we also have Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy, and today is the first day of our Festival of Toys 2016. And for those of you who've never been here for the Festival of Toys, let me just say, I get really excited about this because I'm a former educator. Former educator, you're always an educator, right? I love games, and I love the teaching opportunities that comes with games and toys. So our very special guest a little bit later on in the show is going to be Brian Turtle from Endless Games, one of my favorite companies. And you can see we've got some of their toys here on the desk. We're going to play a little bit later on, and we're going to talk about the importance of play and why play is so educational. I love. And every day, and sometimes every hour, we're going to feature a different toy or a different line of toys and talk about why it's good for some of our kids on the autism spectrum, or why it's good for all of our kids on the autism spectrum, and how to utilize a toy or a game, how to use it to tease out more skills for our kids, right? And the thing that I particularly love about our toys and games that we highlight is that they are, for the most part, they are not toys that are specifically designed for kiddos who are on the autism spectrum. They're like toys that you can go and get and give to other people in your family that are not on the spectrum, and they can be playing with kids who are on the spectrum. But if we just utilize them in a specific way or pay attention to a couple of details, we're actually building skills for our kids. So as a parent, I love that there's an element to it that just looks like everybody else's life, because we all crave that, right? But there's an underbelly to it that is superlative in the education department, teaching a wide range of things from conversation and language skills to turn taking, social skills, knowing when somebody else is lying. Those are good skills. Being able to tell a white lie ourselves, it's an essential skill for safety. So we're going to be the whole next month. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about toys and games and giving our personal recommendations for things that we think are super fabulous. And couldn't start with a better person and company than Brian Turtle and Endless Games, because they do it on a wonderful scale. So we're going to be talking about that. But I do need to remind you that our entire show is meant to be interactive. We want you to participate with us. We want to know your thoughts, your feelings, your questions. I know that we have a lot of new viewers who are watching the show who found us over the weekend because of a bizarre turn of events. We welcome you to the show. We do encourage you to write in and let your thoughts and feelings and concerns and questions be known. I will tell you, though, that we don't allow for hate speech at all. There's just like a zero tolerance policy. So we're all learning how to self-regulate, right? Because sometimes you get upset and angry, but we don't allow for anybody to speak bully to anyone else. So no swearing and no name calling. Okay, and that even goes for me, right? Okay, so having said that, Samantha's going to show you some of the different ways that you can communicate with us, some of the different ways that you can be watching the show. While she does that, I want to remind you that our homepage is, in fact, www.autism-live.com. There's a lot of things to do there. You can go there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you'll see that it looks like a desktop. A very clean desktop. I assure you my desktop doesn't look like that. But you can click on the triangle that's on the computer screen, and that will start the most recent show playing or the live show playing, whichever we happen to be doing. And you can, if it's a recorded show, you'll be able to tell because you can fast forward and rewind and do all that fun stuff. Now, if you wanted to watch a show that's further back in our archives, you can click on the memo tab that's in the upper left-hand corner, and that gives you the ability to watch the 100 most recent shows here at Autism Live. If you want to go back further in the archives or you want to search the archives for topics, there are lots of places to do that. We're available on iTunes, and we have our own YouTube channel. We have a channel on Roku. We're on Stitcher, all those wonderful places, and you can do that and search there. Now, but when you're on the home page, one of the great things that you can do is interact with us. There's something we call the live feature that's just to the side of the computer screen. If you put your cursor in the box that says your questions, you type and you hit enter, and it shows up here on my screen. And we got a lot of comments over the weekend about a certain video that we'll talk about a little bit later that a lot of you have been watching and having thoughts and feelings about. And everybody's thoughts and feelings are welcome and appreciated. We do read, and I'm behind on the ones on YouTube because there's over 4,000 of them. I'm trying to catch up. And we are going to talk more about that topic, about that video a little bit later on, but I got a new subject I want to pop off on today. So anyway, but when you write into us, all you have to do is write and hit enter. There's no login, there's no username, there's no password, there's no credit card information. We don't know who you are. You have complete and total anonymity, which is great, unless you want us specifically to answer you back, in which case you do need to include an email or something like that. When you do that, I don't share it with the audience. I have the choice of showing comments or not showing comments. So if they're personal in nature, or you're giving personal information, or if you say something that's inappropriate, we did have some people write in and say some things that were inappropriate. There were some names that were called of me and a lot of other people, and that's part and parcel, I think, of a lot of what's wrong in the world today, and we don't have to resort to calling people names. I don't think so. But in any case, you're welcome to bring your thoughts and feelings and concerns, and please tell me how you feel. It's important to express how you feel. Okay, having said all that, I want to take a short break, and then a whole lot of controversy in the last 24 hours about Jeff Sessions and something that he said in the year 2000 about education, about IDEA, and a lot of people having some thoughts and feelings and concerns about it. I want to talk about it, but I want to move the conversation forward. So stick with me, because we're going to go on a ride. We're going to take a short break, and we're going to be back to talk about what Mr. Sessions said is the problem in American schools. All right, stick with us.
Are those your eyes? Is that your smile? I've been looking at you forever, yet I never saw you before. Are these your hands?
As a celebrity, whatever that means, you want to do what you can to give back. The way I've always looked at it, if I'm available, I'm going to be there. And when you get there and you see what folks are doing and the lives that they're touching, how can you not want to continue to be a part of it?
And for the first time, I am looking in your
what can we all do to make a difference? Not only with trying to find a cure, but to help the children and the families that may not have the resources for these kids.
When you're looking back at me, now I understand what...
None of us are doing enough, but I think that we're doing as much as we possibly can. Because we all live in society, and the more we can all do to help society, the more it helps all of us.
And for the first time, I am looking in your eyes. And for the first time, I'm seeing who you are. I can't believe how much I see when you're looking back at me. Now I understand what love is. Love is for the first time.
Oh, Mr. McKnight. Just what we all needed was a little Brian McKnight, right? How wonderful to hear his wonderful voice. And the two young men who were in that video, Wyatt Jackson, Nancy Alspaugh Jackson's son, and Carter Tiero. We've had Vena Tiero on the show before. So both amazing young men who had a wonderful opportunity to meet with Mr. McKnight. There was a third young man who was there, Bakari Tiero, was there to meet with Mr. McKnight, but he had a meltdown and wasn't able to get out of the car. And it was very enlightening to a lot of people to see the difference between these, and Mr. McKnight commented on the difference between these three young men. At three young men on the autism spectrum with different issues, with different problems and different things to overcome. Because as we know, as Dr. Stephen Shore says, when you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. And this kind of segues into what I want to talk about next. There's been a firestorm on the internet. There's a couple of firestorms going on right now. And we're going to talk about pretty much all of them that have to do with autism, because that's what we talk about here. But the one that I want to focus on during this hour is Senator Jeff Sessions, who has, Mr. Trump has given him the nod for the Attorney General position here in the United States. And there are lots of people that are posting lots of different things and saying, let's, take a look at how he might be as our Attorney General. And one thing that came to light in the last week and that's been posted everywhere are some comments that he made on the floor of the Senate as a senator on May 18th in the year 2000. It was a speech entitled Education, Discipline, and IDEA. And there have been some quotes extracted that people have been really angry about, myself included. I'm going to be honest about that. It makes me angry when people make comments and we blame the child. When we blame the child, I feel that we let everyone down. We were all children at one point, and there's been a lot said. So I want to back up and I want to read to you from the actual speech. And then I want to talk about some things that are very disturbing to me based on this, because I fear that sometimes people can stand up and sound incredibly reasonable and go, this is wrong. And it's very easy for other people to go, oh my gosh, that is wrong. When it's not entirely factual, and I'm going to use the word ignorant. And when I say ignorant, I don't mean it in all the negative connotations about ignorance. Ignorance is when you do not have knowledge. And in this case, I believe that is, and ignorance is not something to be ashamed of. Ignorance is not something that we should go, oh, well, so-and-so is ignorant, because ignorant doesn't mean that you can't learn. It just means that you aren't aware of this. And I believe that if we take awareness and give it to people, there are things that I am ignorant to and I want to learn. And that's how we grow, right? But I don't want people to just stop and go, oh, well, this is, so let me start. This is what Mr. Sessions, I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's 15 pages, but he begins and he says, Mr. President, I want to share some additional thoughts with the members of the Senate and those watching what we can do to improve education in America. Well, yay, rah-ray, right? I believe in public education, he goes on to say. Oh, good, thank goodness. I have taught and my wife has taught in public schools. All right. I say that to express how deeply I care about it. We have been active in PTA as our kids have gone forward. We want to improve the system. We want to make learning occur more regularly. I don't think anybody could be in disagreement with that, right? We want to help teachers. Yay. I believe in American teachers, he goes on to say. Good, so do I. They are some of the finest in the world. They are well trained. Now there, Mr. Sessions, is where you and I part. Because of what you're going to go on and say. I don't think that they're, let's say this, how, when a teacher's, and I'm a former teacher, lots of classroom experience, more than a decade of classroom experience. And I can speak to the fact that and I'm also very involved in the PTA. We have a situation going on in classrooms, which you're going to go on to talk about, but we've not given our teachers training for that. We haven't. And I defy you to show me where we have. Okay, so he says they are well trained. They give their hearts and souls to it, only to be frustrated by regulations, paperwork, and discipline problems resulting from mandated rules passed by this Congress. I'm going to share some thoughts today, and those in education in any state of America will know what I am saying is true. They will have heard these kinds of examples time and time again, but the vast majority of Americans will not believe it. They will not believe these things occur. Over 25 years ago, for example, we passed a Federal Disabilities Act. It was designed to mandate to school systems and require that they not shut out disabled kids from the classroom and that they be involved in the classroom. If they have a hearing loss or a sight loss, or if they have difficulty moving around in a wheelchair or whatever, the school system must make accommodations for them. They would be mainstreamed. They would not be treated separately. That was a good idea, a goal from which we should not retreat. I hope no one interprets what I say today as a retreat from that goal. But in the course of time, we have created a complex system of federal regulations and laws that have created lawsuit after lawsuit, special treatment for certain children, and that are a big factor in accelerating the decline in civility and discipline in classrooms all over America. I say that very sincerely. Teachers I have been talking to have shared stories with me. I have been in 15 schools around Alabama this year. I have talked to them about a lot of subjects. I ask them about this subject in every school I go to, and I am told in every school that this is a major problem for them. In fact, it may be the single most irritating problem for teachers throughout America today. It was really brought to my attention a little over a year ago when a longtime friend, District Attorney David Whetstone in Baldwin County, Alabama, called me about a youngster in the school system classified as having a disability. It is called emotional conflict. He was emotionally conflicted. He could not or would not behave. An aide would meet him in the morning at his home, get on the bus with him and go to school, sit through the class all day, and ride home on the school bus with him. This student was known to curse principals and teachers openly in the classroom. Because he was a disabled student, he could not be disciplined in the normal way. The maximum 10-day suspension rule and 45 days is the maximum a child can be disciplined under this federal law, and then they are back in the classroom. One day, he attacked the school bus driver on the way home. The aide tried to restrain him, and then he attacked the aide. District Attorney Whetstone told me, I was never more stunned when I talked to the school officials, and they told me this is common in our country. We have children we cannot control because of this federal law. He came to Washington, and he sat up in the gallery, and we talked about it. I respect David Whetstone and his views. As a matter of fact, this very incident was focused on in Time magazine. There was a full-page story about it called The Meanest Kid in Alabama, and 60 Minutes did a story about it because it is unfortunately so common around the country. What can we do about it? I began to ask leaders in the education around the state. The state superintendent said, absolutely, it's one of the biggest problems we have. I talked to Paul Hubbard, head of teachers union in Alabama. Absolutely, it's a big problem. I'm tired, he said in the newspaper recently, of children cursing my teachers in the classroom and nothing being done about it. Then we began to talk to teachers, principals, and school board superintendents. They talked about the lawyers and the complicated regulations with which they deal. It is really unacceptable. Teachers who have been trained with master's degree in special education to deal with these children have also overwhelmingly told me that this is not a healthy thing, that we're telling special children with physical disabilities or disabilities as defined by the federal law that they don't have to adhere to the same standards other children do. Right in the classroom, we create by federal law 2 separate standards for American citizens. You can say to one child, you can't do this or you're out of school. But we can say to another child, you can't do it and you can do it and you're only out 10 days or maybe 45 days and then you're back in the classroom. That is not defensible. Okay. I want to stop there. So I want to say to Mr. Sessions, here's the problem with your logic. There are some things that I agree with you about that we can meet in the middle about. And for everybody who has been defending this, I want just for a moment, stop and consider that from the beginning, let's start right from the beginning, the idea that it's not okay for anyone, regardless of disability, to behave in a way that is socially unacceptable. It's not okay to hit people. It's not, and he goes on to quote people who say that children brought guns to school. None of that is okay. And please don't think that I'm saying that that is okay. It isn't. And here's the other thing. IDEA doesn't protect kids against doing those behaviors. What it does do, and several people have written in on Facebook and said, when we set up a system where, kids are all special snowflakes and we coddle them and we don't allow for discipline, that we're setting up these horrible circumstances. And aren't all kids special and unique? Yes, all kids are special and unique. And one of the things that we've done in our public school system is we've set up a system where we feel like if somebody does something bad, let's punish them. And now I'm talking about the neurotypical kids. So if a neurotypical kid comes in and swears at the teacher, then, according to what Mr. Sessions says here, then that child, if you don't behave this way, then you get sent home. That it's just that simple. Except that that's not entirely the truth, right? All children in the United States have a right to a free, appropriate public education. All children, not just children with IEPs. We need to educate our kids. And when we get into this mindset of, when you don't fit in and you can't behave in the way that we have set up, we've made some rules and we've said, this is what it takes to be successful in this place. And if you can't adhere to that, then you're out. Now, I just want to ask you, where does that child go? Where does that child, and I'm talking about the neurotypical kids right now, the ones that swear at the teacher and they got kicked out. Because this is the premise here, that we've set up this unequal thing, and that there's kids that we're throwing out of schools for bad behavior, but if they've got something else going on, we don't throw them out, and that's what's wrong. Where do the kids go that don't behave well and get kicked out of school? Because there's a name for that, and it's called the pipeline to prison. That's what that's called. We need to educate our kids. And more of our kids are having behavior problems. And some of them, it's a documented disability, and some of them it's not. But our kids, you're right, it is a problem. And as a former classroom teacher, I can tell you, it's overwhelming when you go into a classroom and the class size is 35, 40. At one point, I had an English class, a 10th grade English class that I was responsible for teaching, and I had 52 students in the classroom. 52. Now, later on, and before and after that, I was a college professor, and sometimes I had 250 students in a survey type of classroom, a lecture hall kind of thing. But in a high school, in a 10th grade English class, when you're going to teach Huckleberry Finn, 52 kids. And by the way, not enough books. Not enough books for all 52 kids. Okay. You're going to have some behavior problems. There's no way you're not going to have behavior problems. And it's not all about diagnoses, right? But for some of our kids, there is a diagnosis. And there needs to be a line. Because as you said about this meanest child in Alabama, he either couldn't or wouldn't behave. And there's a difference, actually. Because for the kid who has Tourette's, swearing at the principal is not a choice, right? By the way, there are behavioral things that can be done to help to minimize that, but it's not a choice. So if a child has Tourette's, you're saying, according to this, that child goes home to do what? What exactly are they doing when they go home? Okay, so what if we just had a shift here, and instead of, see, this kind of stuff bothers me because we go, oh, it's the child. It's the child. The child can't do it, so the child goes home. Is that the criteria that we're setting up? Because we're in deep doo-doo if that is the criteria we're setting up. The reality is that all kids are special, and all kids do have special needs, and all kids have the right to an education, in my opinion. Not all governments believe in that. And we have to decide as a nation here what we believe in, right? But there's a whole lot of people, and I was part of a discussion this morning on Facebook saying, the problem here is that we haven't trained the teachers. When you give teachers good training and skills for dealing with behavior issues, this kind of stuff doesn't happen. Even when there are kids who have pretty tremendous issues. Now, there are some kids, and I'm in full agreement with this, there are some kids who are not ready to be in a mainstream classroom today. That does not mean we throw them away. Those kids can be pulled to the side and be put in a different classroom where they get a little less sensory overload, and we work on things and strategies, but we don't let them get away with behavior. That's not what IDEA stands for, but IDEA is there as a way to prevent us from throwing children away. I want to talk about an event that we were at this weekend that I think illustrates exactly what I'm talking about. We had a Sensitive Santa event where we invited children and their siblings to come to a sensory gym, and they could play. So there was no waiting in line, because waiting in line can be very hard for our kids who are on the autism spectrum, especially when there's something exciting, right? To wait for Santa. And so they could play on equipment and work out their yayas. And then they got to come and be in the room with Santa. Now, and we toned down so there was minimal sound when you went into the room with Santa. We had some trees and we had some lights, but nothing was blinking. We allowed kids to take their time. We had some kids who came into the Santa room and they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. It was really, really hard. And they were really struggling. Now, if you think about the typical Santa experience, waiting in the line and then getting there and then getting put up on Santa's lap, and they take the picture and it's 30 seconds and it doesn't matter whether you can do it and you're out, right? And we said, this is a sensitive Santa experience. We're not going to do it that way. We're going to give the kids time. But there were, and there were kids who needed, 5 and 10 minutes before they could warm up to Santa, and that was fine. And we took the picture, and that was fine. There were some kids that even then it was a big struggle, that we took 15, 20, 25 minutes, and it was still, not at a place where we were able to get the picture. Now I tell you this because it would be all too easy. The easy route is to go, well, they can't do it. Right? And a lot of people be like, well, and that's too bad, but, we're not going to hold up everything else for these couple of kids because they can't do it. Right? But here's what happened. We did our level best with those kids, and then we said, let's take a break and let's come at this again, because sometimes more opportunities help. And so we said to the people who brought those kids, we said, let them go play, and then before you leave, let's ask them if they want to come back in. And every single one of those kids came back in and eventually got a picture with Santa, because we gave them more opportunity. Now, at the typical mall, none of our kids would have been able to have done it. And at our event, a lot of the kids with some extra time and help could do it the first time, but there were still more kids that needed the second time. So my question to you is, do you want to take away that from our kids? It would have been easy to go, oh, they can't do it. They can't do it. So let's give up on it, right? How many times have people given up on kids? And as somebody who loves children and knows that they grow up to be adults, I want to say to you, we have to stop that. It has never made any sense to me that a kid who misbehaves gets sent home from school or gets sent to another school. First of all, if you understand behavior and the reasons why people engage in behavior, it's ludicrous. Like, it's absolutely, you're in a lot of cases, you're giving the child what they want. What you're saying to a child is, I know you don't want to be at school, so all you have to do is X, Y, and Z, and you're out. This isn't right for neurotypical kids. You're saying that you want to put a system that, by the way, isn't working. Check your facts. Because expelling kids has never in any study been shown to make a difference in a kid's behavior. Why would it? Just think about it. Why would it make a difference? Oh, you yelled at the teacher and you called the teacher names, and now you get to go home and sit and watch The Price is Right? And you're going to come back in 10 days, 45 days, whatever. And boy, we taught you a lesson. Yeah, we did. We taught you act up again, and then you're out, and you can go to a new school and try over there, and then we'll kick you out of there, and eventually we'll lock you up in prison. You think I'm overreacting? Check the facts. Those are the kids who end up in prison after committing some heinous crimes. So what does work? All kinds of things. There are things that work that are not expulsion with kids who have behavior problems, disability or no disability. There's been a big study, we haven't had a chance to cover it here on the show yet, but schools that are putting in meditation and seeing a difference in behavior. I don't want to just leave this topic here without giving some real tools so that if somebody is watching this and going, okay, wait a second, maybe what she's saying makes a certain amount of sense, but how would we put that into practice? So I want to go over the 4 main reasons why we get challenging behavior and what we do to combat them that isn't expulsion, and why that is such a recipe for disaster. And I want to say to everybody, don't give up on our kids. What Mr. Sessions, I know it sounds so reasonable. Let's just send these kids someplace else. They don't need to be mainstream. Let's put them over there because it's convenient for me. I really want to remind you that that's such a disservice, That would be like saying to the kids who couldn't do the Santa Claus thing, I'm sorry, you just don't get to sit on Santa's lap. Let me tell you how emotional and amazing it was when those kids were able to do it, and the smiles that were on their face. My friends, that's how you change the world. How many of these kids do you want to give up on exactly? Because we shouldn't be giving up on any of them. So we don't blame the child. We certainly don't blame the parents, as somebody did on my Facebook this morning who said, oh, this is all the parents' fault. Oh, my friends, that is the very definition of ignorant. And we can't blame the teachers and say that they just don't care, because that's not it either. But if we don't give teachers tools, if we don't give them the skills, and let me just tell you, it's starting to be taught at the college level for teachers, but teachers that are in the classroom right now aren't people who have been in school in the last 10 years, because guess what? We laid all those people off. There are people in the classroom that have much more experience with classroom, but they don't have experience with the behaviors that they're seeing in the classroom. And I know firsthand, when you give them the training, and it's not hard, you give them the training that they need, we all get back to learning. But just sending them home, oh my goodness, this is not what anybody should be fighting for. So don't get confused on this. This is not right. This is not right for anyone. And we're not talking about letting them get away with behavior. We're talking about eliminating the behavior. Is that not a smarter thing? Okay, so we're going to take a break, and when we come back, I'm going to line out for you the 4 usual suspects of behavior, how we deal with it in the classroom, and how we turn this equation around. Stick with me.
What would you do if your child was hurting?
If your family's future was uncertain.
If help seemed out of reach.
Have you been given no hope?
Taka means I am not alone in this.
This is the reality for families affected by autism. And today, the number of children with autism is growing more rapidly than ever. Taka unites these families and shows that they do not have to fight this battle alone.
Our oldest son, Jared, who has autism, when we first took him to the doctor to get the diagnosis, you know, it's so sad because they offer you nothing. There's no help, there's no hope.
One of the things that you learn with autism is being very grateful for even the small milestones. You know, when you first get the diagnosis, you go through all the range of emotions. You know, this can't be happening. Why is this happening? You have to get to a point where it's the emotion that has to be leading is, what can I do? The first thing that struck me was walking to a room and seeing, oh my gosh, we're not alone. And there is this very strong community that's already set. And something I still today associate with Taka the most is hope. To me, that's what Taka means. Taka means hope.
It's like you've got all these dreams and goals of what your son's gonna do, and you get your diagnosis and you're sent home. And that's it. There's no plan of action. There's no, here's autism, here's what we're gonna do to make your life better and help him. It's strictly go home and try to process it and go on the internet. It was devastating, and you just, you know, you go through this 3-week of depression, and then you snap out of it. You have to. And then you start making phone calls and trying to figure out what is autism and what are we gonna do? And then we found Taka, and it was life-changing.
Autism, there really is no definitive answer. It is trying to find the resources that are out there that can assist you to help your child so that, you know, you just don't feel so helpless at those particular moments.
There was direction, and there was hope, and there was a little ray of sunshine that he's gonna be okay, and we're gonna be okay. I always look back and think we would never be where we are. Carson wouldn't be where he is at without Taka.
So 13 years ago, my son was diagnosed with autism, and that put our whole family into a tailspin. There were so many different ideas and things that were not proven. Nobody knew what guidance to give us. We had no direction. And then we found Taka. They helped give us a path to follow, help give our son a better future and make him healthy and put him back onto the road of recovery. When your son's first diagnosed, the first thing you hope for is, gosh, I just want my son to speak. I just want to be able to communicate with him in some way. Then you want a little more. You want him to go to a regular school. Then you want him to potentially have a real life and go to college. So you're always hoping for the future of your child. My son is a happy, healthy, vibrant young boy that's going to turn 15 really soon, and we couldn't be more pleased, and without Taka, I don't think we'd be in the place that we are today. We believe the future is not defined for many affected by autism. There is hope and direction for these kids and their families. Taka is dedicated to providing community, support, education, and hope to families affected by autism.
At Taka,
At Taka,
At Taka,
We are families with autism helping.
helping.
helping families.
helping families with autism.
Hi, my name is Matt. I am 19 years old and I was diagnosed with autism when I was 6 years old. Autism is one of the fastest growing developmental disabilities in the United States, but I am living proof that with the right treatment, hope is possible. My future is not limited. Today, I am attending Fullerton Community College and I run for the cross-country team for fun with my friends. It makes me feel proud when I think about my progress. Chances are you know someone affected by autism. Show them they are not alone and help others get on the road to recovery. Contribute to Talk About Curing Autism today.
Welcome back. As I said, we're taking a special hour here to talk about some things that have been going on. I just was reading some comments by Jeff Sessions that were made in 2000. So I do want to cut some slack in terms of, I hope that he has changed his mind about IDEA, because if you read his whole report, he feels like it's one of the biggest problems in the American school system, that IDEA is preventing us from being able to punish behavior out of children who are have any kind of special need or have any kind of challenging behavior, and specifically cites that we should be able to expel them and take them out of school, which we all know is a recipe for disaster, and that we shouldn't have a double standard, that we shouldn't be taking kids out of school when they have challenging behavior. We should find ways of changing the challenging behavior. One of the things that happened for me when I began to meet behavior analysts, people who are well versed in ABA, I learned that it is never the child's fault. In fact, assigning blame for challenging behavior is futile. It's like going to the hardware store and looking for spaghetti and milk. Not wise, right? Instead, we need to take apart the behavior and figure out where have things gone awry. We talk a lot on this show about the ABCs of behavior. A, and this is for any behavior exhibited by anyone ever, right? There's always the A, which is the antecedent. Something happens, right? And then there is the B, the behavior happens as a result of whatever the antecedent was. And then there's the C, which is the consequence for the behavior. Now, in our society, really, if you think about this, we're all well versed in this. We just don't think about it in terms of the ABC. We all engage in this 300 million times a day. And as teachers and as parents and other people, we certainly we're all about that C, the consequence, because we have been raised and brought up in a society that's all about punishment. Well, punishment is a consequence strategy. And here's the thing about punishment. Sometimes punishment is effective, but so fewer times than we are led to believe, because we're immediate, like, let's punish that behavior. That'll change it. And yet we see that punishment is not an effective strategy when we really want to change behavior, except in very specific circumstances. And it has to be done in exactly the right way, because even if it would have been effective, if it's not delivered in the right way, it's not effective. What we find is effective much more often and requires much less expertise are strategies that are positive instead of punishing, right? And that we can eliminate a lot of challenging behavior by looking at what the antecedent is and changing the circumstances around the antecedent. That's actually really effective at changing a lot of behaviors. And some behaviors still are very effective with a consequence behavior, but what we find is giving a reward for good behavior, the absence of the challenging behavior, is much more effective than punishing consequences. And this is true in the classroom, okay? But a lot of times, because what we've been trained to is just punish, we don't even ask ourselves questions about, why is that behavior happening? Great book that I want to encourage anybody out there, parent, teacher, school administrator, mommy, I wish I could tell you what they did to me in school. Richard Strip, great book, read it. It's very, very enlightening. And it really brings home, because a story is told about, I think it's 9 different children, and they tell you what happened at school, and it sounds horrible. You know, this child took off his shoes and he threw them at the teacher, and it sounds like, oh man, that's some challenging behavior, and you hear what happened as a consequence, right? But then Richard writes it from the point of view of the child, if the child had words to speak, and you go, oh, that's what was going on, right? And it really brings home that anytime there's behavior, there's something going on. In the case of the child taking and throwing his shoes, because he wasn't verbal and couldn't say, I have to go to the bathroom. And so nobody was listening to him. So all he had was his shoes to take his shoes and throw them. So we need to look at why behavior is happening. And the most basic principle is to understand that all behavior happens for a reason, especially if it's behavior that happens again and again and again. And you hear teachers talking realistically about kids who are in the classroom who are constantly doing challenging behaviors. So we know that there is a reason for that behavior, and it is almost always there is a form of a paycheck for the child or the person engaged in the behavior, and that's why they're doing it. Because otherwise, why would they, right? So, and we need to know what the paycheck is for that behavior, and we need to cut off the supply of that paycheck and have there be a different paycheck that goes for the appropriate behavior. I know it sounds ridiculously, stupidly easy. It isn't. Because it takes some finesse and some working and some trial and some error, and you have to kind of be Sherlock Holmes, and you have to be willing to try stuff. But the fact of the matter is, that's what works, not sending them home. And we'll talk about exactly why. So when we look at what the paycheck is for the behavior, there's a very specific way that we can do that professionally that's called an FBA, a functional behavior assessment. For anyone who is a parent who's watching whose child is engaging in challenging behavior, don't hesitate right now. Send an email to your IEP team and say, I want an FBA done on this behavior. Legally, they have to do it. If you are a teacher and you've got somebody in your classroom who is exhibiting challenging behavior, request an FBA so that they come in and they can find what the challenging behavior is. Because when you assume, you leave room for error, right? I always say, when our car breaks down and something isn't working in our car, we don't just start pulling things out and going, I'll try the whole thing and I'll do it myself, right? We take it to a mechanic. And what does the mechanic do? The mechanic says, I'm going to drive it around the block and I'm going to run some tests, some diagnostics, so I figure out what's going on, because I'm not going to pull out your carburetor unless I know that it's the carburetor. We want to apply those same standards to dealing with challenging behavior. But having said that, there are some smaller things that you can play with while you're waiting for an FBA with maybe other kids in the classroom to see how powerful this stuff is, okay? But first we have to talk about what the 4 usual suspects are. There are 4 usual reasons why a child will engage in challenging behavior. And if you know what they are and how to react to them, it's the keys to the kingdom. The total keys to the kingdom. Okay, so the most often reason why kids will engage in challenging, and by the way, this is not just kids on the autism spectrum, this is all of us and all of our kids, all human beings, right? These are the 4 usual suspects. So the biggest one, The first one we want to talk about is attention. People do things to get attention. Think about in the classroom, again, former teacher here, these are the kids who are throwing things, right? These are the kids who touch other kids. These are the kids who are cracking jokes. These are the kids who toss their books on the floor. These are the kids that are pests. And I call these kids the bucket half full kids. They are missing something. And we could talk about it endlessly about whose fault it is. The truth of the matter is, it doesn't matter. There are some kids that you never quite get their bucket all the way full. You're constantly having to put attention in it. But here's the deal. When you give those kids attention, they become the best kids in the classroom. You think I don't know what I'm talking about? I absolutely do. I remember after 9/11, when I went back into a high school setting to teach, after teaching college for years, and I said, I want to make more of a difference. And my first day there, one of the students, I was up in front of the class and lecturing, and I felt something go whoosh by my head, and I heard this thwack, and I turned around, and now there's a big crack in the center of my blackboard, my chalkboard, that wasn't there before, and there is a AA battery laying on the floor. Student in the back of the classroom threw a battery at my head so hard that it cracked the blackboard. And I was like, oh, well, that's some serious business, right? And fast forward a year later, and that same student was on the honor roll. Same student was on the honor roll because I got some training and some help and support to realize that he believed that I was going to leave and it was just a matter of time, and he was going to hurry it up because everybody had left him his entire life. He wanted some attention, and he was going to get it as I left, and he was going to scare me. Except that I made the decision in that moment to react how you're supposed to react when somebody wants attention and engages in bad behavior. You don't give them what they want. So I glanced, I saw the blackboard, I saw the battery. I didn't bend over to pick it up. I just continued on. And I said nothing, did nothing. And on a different day, when he came into the classroom, I made him the project manager of something that we were doing in class. And I said, you're going to sit up here by me. And I gave him something so that he was busy and that I constantly had to check in with him. And I praised him every time he did something right. And in a year, he was on the honor roll. Now, I could have filed a report and gotten him expelled. I'm 100% clear on that. And I can tell you exactly where he would be today, in prison, because that's where he was headed. So this is why this is so important to me. When our kiddos are doing things that are attention driven, we don't ever give attention to the bad behavior. Now, I am not saying that you let them get away with things. If he had hit me with a battery, that would have been a different thing. If he had thrown something a second time, that would have been a different thing. I did if he had hit another student, I could not have ignored that, right? I was okay. The blackboard wasn't. And in that moment, I made a judgment call and said, I know I can turn this around with some help, and I did get some help. And I think that that's an important key thing for teachers as well. But the point is, we don't give attention to the bad behavior because all that does is feed it, right? Instead, we give attention to anything that we can find that's good. And for people who think, oh, you're treating them like snowflakes, I just want to go to what is the goal. Do we want to have more people in the prisons, or do we want to have more productive people in society? And which one works? I know your mind goes, oh, he should have been punished. I get that. But to what end? You can't punish that kind of behavior out. If you could, there would be nobody in prison. And we know that's not the case. Mind shift. This works. It did work. He wasn't the only kid that I had problems with. I had a kid who would sit and he couldn't, I found out later on he couldn't read. So he would sit and he would do things and then he would crumple up papers and he would throw them. Now, to me, that's an attention-seeking thing. If you're throwing something across the room, you want to get caught. And so for that kid, I did a little bit of research and found out that he loved to draw. He had an A in art and was failing every other class. So you take that interest and you put attention on that. I made him feel capable. And by the time my class was over, he could read. But I had to start by getting him interested and giving him attention. So I had him we were reading a book and I pulled him to the front of the classroom so that I can give him more attention, right? And I showered him with attention and I said, I need your help. We're going to read something from this book and I need for you to be the illustrator and draw the picture for it. And he learned to read as a result of that. All right. Oh, we're like running out of time really quickly. Okay. So attention, we don't give attention to the bad behaviors except when there are excruciating circumstances. And that goes into antecedents and you can find out more about that on another show. There'll be more coming, but you give attention for any time that they do something good. I think you'll see and sometimes you have to set a timer so that every minute you give somebody attention, but giving them attention every minute prevents the bad behavior. And eventually you move it to 1 minute and 10 seconds and 1 minute and 30 seconds, 2 minutes. And eventually you can go the whole class and not have to pay attention to that person because they know they're going to get the attention. Okay. That's the biggest reason for challenging behavior, but the next one is escape. They want out. And when we send them home for bad behavior, guess what we did? We gave them what they wanted. When it's escape maintained, the antecedent is to build in breaks so that they get breaks. And the other thing that we do is that when we are giving them something to do that they want to escape, we don't let them escape unless they ask appropriately. Hard, but it's doable in the classroom. The third reason why there's challenging behavior, which honestly doesn't happen as much in the classroom, is wanting to have access to someone or something with the littler kids. That's true, but not as much with the older kids. So what we do is we give them an opportunity to have access to that through appropriate behavior, and we never give them access to something for behavior that they don't want to do. Now, the last one is automatically reinforcing. And for our kids that are on the autism spectrum, that is something that we deal with all the time. And guess what? You can't punish that away. There is a need, there is a compulsion to do for this can be kids spitting on their hands and drawing pictures on it. This can be a child picking their nose. You cannot punish that away. Often what works is that we give an incompatible rewarding behavior instead. So if you got a kid who's constantly sticking his finger up his nose, you got to give them something that they enjoy more than picking their nose, that has their hands involved, so that while they're doing whatever that thing is, they're not sticking their finger up their nose, and you reward them for that. That might be Legos for one kid. It might be a Sudoku puzzle for another kid. It could be painting for another kid. But you have to give something that's more rewarding, that makes it impossible for them to do that thing. Because a lot of times in the classroom, it's things that we do with hands. So you'll see that for some kids, we give fidget toys too. Because if I'm playing with my squishy, my finger can't be up my nose. Until we can get them to a point where we can talk about why socially it's not acceptable. But for a lot of kids, that whatever that compulsion is to do, it's huge. It cannot be punished away. And kicking a kid out of school or out of a classroom for those kinds of behaviors is criminal. All right, I had to rush through that, but we're out of time. It's time for us to take a break, and we're going to be back with Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson, and we've got some news. Oh, there's more. There's more, my friends. And don't forget, we're going to be doing Endless Games with Brian Turtle, so stick with us.
Toy. Good talking. Wow. Should we open? Horse. It is a horse. Do you want to open it? Horse. Yeah, it is a horse. Do you want to open? Open. So you have 1, 2. You have 2 pieces. Do you want more? Okay, here. You want another horse? I have another horse for you. It's a horse. Here you go. You say, I want more.
Now that Jack Riley is talking, Jessica is trying to build his vocabulary by having him say short phrases instead of one-word demands.
Say, I want more. Say, I want. Say, want more. Good trying. All done, or you want more? More. Okay. Okay. All right. Should we put it away? No. No? You want more? Okay.
He has mastered the use of that word.
Yeah. I swear, like today he's like a different kid, and I saw him, what, just Tuesday? That's amazing.
We went to a restaurant last night. He ate his own food, but he fed himself in the restaurant.
Good. What did you bring your own food?
Yeah, we bring our own food with
For him.
He did great.
Will he try any of the foods that you have?
Well, we have to be careful because of the gluten and casein thing. So we don't let him actually if it's a normal restaurant.
Okay.
Although the place we went has gluten-free pizza.
Oh, well, that's
So
pretty
we're
cool.
gonna try that next time maybe.
It's really good. Because as soon as you guys have him tested and everything, maybe we might want to try new foods with him.
Okay.
Introduce him to new foods. That would be good.
Right.
Okay, all right, 1 minute's up. All done. We can play with it later, okay? Clean up. Clean up. Oh, good listening. Thanks. Is this your baby sister? Hopefully.
Yes.
It's a girl?
Sister.
I knew it. I knew it. I was telling him.
Jack, can you say sister? Can you say sister? Sister.
I knew it. I was telling Cheryl too. I was like, I know it's a girl. I have this feeling it's a girl.
Yeah.
She's like, that's what we hope, but it's probably going to be a boy.
No, I said it was a girl.
Oh.
God has a sense of humor.
Oh. How cute. This is the newest edition? Yeah. Is it upside down? I cannot tell. I think that's her head.
Yeah, she's
right?
Almost 18 weeks.
Oh. Baby sister's coming.
I think he's gonna be like me. I was very protective of my little sister.
3. 3. Okay. So we're going to be doing matching identicals. So 2D pictures. And he's going to match them to the 3D object in a field of 3. So this is the first day I'm going to be doing it. So we'll see if he can discriminate between the two and see if he can actually match and scan the field. Look, Jack Riley, do you want book or cracker?
Jessica is doing a preference assessment to see which item Jack Riley wants as his reward when he finishes his task.
Put what's same. That's the same. Look, they're both dinosaurs. Can you try? Put what's same.
Right now, Jessica is prompting Jack Riley what to do since this is new for him. Once he understands what is being asked of him, Jessica's prompting will fade away.
That's the same. Jack Riley, try. Put what's same. Same. Right here. This is the same. That's the same. Jack Riley, try. Put what's same. The same. That's the same. You try. Put what's same. The same. No. Right here. Match it to the dinosaur. Yeah, like that. That's the same. There we goes. Yeah. Can you do Jack Riley? Okay, try again. Put with same. Put with same. Yeah, that's the same. There we goes. There we go. All right, helicopter's gonna go here. Here you go. Put with same. Like this, watch. This is same. You try. Put with same. Yeah, that's right. They're the same. Good job. Here you go. I'm gonna hold on to that guy. Thanks. Put with same. This is the same. You try put with same. Yeah, that's the same. Let's try it again. Here. Put with same. That's right. That's the same. Good job. What is this? Is it a duck? It's a duck. Is it a duck? Say duck. Duck. Good. What sound does a duck make? Quack, quack, quack. There you go. We actually started a new program called Yes No, where we're reteaching him how to say yes for things that he wants to play. Like, for example, like if he wants to watch a movie or something really, really reinforcing. So we're going to teach that to him in airless learning, meaning that we're going to prompt him all the way when we're first starting to teach him the new skill, and then fade out our prompts eventually once he starts to get the hang of saying yes to things that he wants to play with instead of just saying no to everything. So we give him another word that he can utilize. He even seems to say no to things that he does want to, so that's why we want to okay when he wants things. But yes seems to be more functional. Let's go!
Jessica, Mike, Cheryl, and Jack Riley are going outside to practice stop, which is still a safety issue because he doesn't always comply. Jessica wants to see how often Jack Riley listens to them and follows the direction.
Stop!
Stop. Yeah, remember? No.
Try again. Go. Stop. Yay!
For now, pausing for a moment is verbally rewarded since he is complying. With practice, the duration in which he pauses will become longer.
Stop.
That's not a stop.
Try again.
Try again.
Try again, honey.
Try again. Stop. Yeah.
What?
Good stop.
What?
Good stop.
Leave it.
Stop. Stop. That's not a good stop. Try again. Try again. Okay, stop. Good. Keep stopping. This is how we get him back to the house when he's lollygagging. Yeah, he's usually happy on. He wasn't in the mood to play anymore, so.
Covered with games.
With games, which you and I have had a lot of discussion, Shannon, about games, because I say Wyatt doesn't care for games, yet when he's engaged in games,
he does.
He does, and he plays them well. And so I'm very excited about this because I think it can be some games we can play with him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe I could get him for Christmas.
Absolutely. These are great games. We're going to have Brian Turtle from Endless Games. We've featured them before on the show because I love their games. We're going to talk a little bit about why these games are so particularly spectacular, but they're games that are made for the general public, but they just happen to work on things that are the things that we're working on with our kiddos on the autism spectrum. So I love that. But before that, we have some quick in the news, some recaps on some things. If you had a pulse over the Thanksgiving weekend, at some point you got caught up in the controversy between Rosie O'Donnell, Melania Trump, and a little bit us. I have to say that we were a little bit included.
I have to tell you, I have not been caught up in the news because the coverage of the election was so negative, and the week that the election was held, I had a burnout effect on the news.
A lot
I'm
of people
a news
have turned
junkie.
off. Yeah, a lot of people turned off and
I
and
don't.
tuned out.
Right now, I can't handle the news.
And I think it's wise to know when you can't handle
this came to me through a number of friends saying, well, you must know about Rosie O'Donnell's now position in the Barron Trump autism rumor.
Okay, and so let's go back to the beginning, and even before the election, there were a group of people who were saying online that they felt that the youngest Trump, that there were some behaviors, and they were asking some questions, and then it moved to people who were saying things as if they were fact. When that happened, my thing is, don't give attention if people are seeking attention, but when, at a certain point, when people started saying it was fact, I did a piece here on the show and said, stop that. Stop saying that. Now, there have been people who have written to me and said, don't tell me what I can and cannot say, and people who have said First Amendment. I want to remind people that the First Amendment does not cover you lying about what you want to be true or what you think is to be true. It doesn't. And we now know, then eventually somebody who is on the spectrum himself made a video, which I saw the video, and I thought it was a particularly incendiary, not positive video. That video got shared more, and then Rosie O'Donnell shared that video over, I think it was on Wednesday. She tweeted, and she did not say that anybody had autism. She asked a question. She said, is he? But she shared the video, and she said, because if he is, this could, really add to the conversation about autism. So then a new firestorm of people looking at the video because she shared it. And ultimately, Melania Trump hired a lawyer who went to the person who had that incendiary video that had over 4 million videos.
James Hunter.
Yes, who claims that he is on the autism spectrum.
Yes, he said he was diagnosed at age 5.
He has now apologized for the video, said he did not intend anything negative. He has taken the video down and put up an apology.
One of the things that has come out of this, though, Shannon, that I think is very important, as you have discussed on the show about the rumors about Barron being autistic, and all over Facebook are these speculations. We now have a statement from the law firm that represents First Lady-elect Melania Trump and her 10-year-old son, Barron Trump. A video was posted at YouTube recently speculating that Barron might be autistic. He is not.
And that is directly from the Trump family.
So all of you people saying that this is going to be the great white hope for autism, they have gone on record now as saying Barron Trump is not autistic. This is from his mother and father's attorney representing the Trumps.
Yes.
Barron Trump is not autistic. This is not going to move by speculating it. We now have the facts. They're saying he's not, so let's end the conversation.
And I will say this, Rosie O'Donnell has apologized as well, said that she meant no ill will. It's amazing to me how quickly everybody gets out the pitchforks and wants to blame her. The video was not hers. She asked a question and she did post the video, which personally, as an autism mom, and now Rosie, as a result of this, came out this week and said that her youngest child has been diagnosed with autism. That's her
daughter, Dakota.
That's the first that we've heard from her publicly about that. That's a huge decision for someone to make. While I disagree with putting the link to that video, because I think it was a really not nice video, in my opinion, as an autism parent, I think that we all have to be careful about sharpening the pitchforks and the torches and putting all of this on her.
Agree.
I think it's time to quiet it all down, move on, let children be children, and let's be positive from here out and welcome Rosie O'Donnell to the community of parents.
She says she's been immersed in the autism world, learning, reading, asking questions. It's all autism all the time.
That's right. And we know what that's like.
We know what that's like.
So in any case, that's what the news is, and I want to move off from it because
Okay.
it's taken way too much
Yeah.
attention. Also, a new study was very much in the news in the last couple of days about there have been lots of questions about the flu vaccine, because you know that even today the flu vaccine contains thimerosal.
Correct.
And so when it's given to children, when it's given to adults, it has thimerosal. And there's been big discussion about should pregnant women get the flu shot. We were told originally that pregnant women are at risk for getting the flu and that they should get the flu shot. Then people said maybe not. Then people said, oh, when you get the flu when you're pregnant, that's what's causing autism. There's been lots of speculation about this. So a new study, all in the news about this, says whether you have the flu shot or don't get the flu shot, get the flu or don't get the flu, it appears that there is no correlation between autism. And they looked at, by the way, this was published on Tuesday in JAMA Pediatrics, and they were looking at children in the Kaiser Permanente system. They looked at almost 200,000 children born between 2000 and 2010. So my child would have been included in that. I just want to go on record as saying we would have been included in this.
And mine?
He was born in Kaiser?
No, sorry, not Kaiser.
That's okay.
He was born
But
between
those
2000.
years.
Yeah.
But my son was born in Kaiser. I was offered a flu shot when I was pregnant. I chose not to get a flu shot. And so this is the big headline everywhere. But what I want to tell you is read the whole article, because in the whole article, when you get down to, there is one part where it says, well, it looks like the numbers were higher in women who got the flu shot in the first trimester. So just be aware of that. But women who got the flu did not end up having more children than women who didn't have the flu. You do have to be careful that you don't get dehydrated when you have the flu.
Yes.
All right. Okay. And so we have to quickly, because we're running out of time here. We're late for Brian Turtle and Endless Games.
Okay.
We're going to play some games.
I hope
Stick
I can
with
keep
us.
up with you. We played some yesterday. You're
Yes.
pretty good.
Yes. I love some games. So stick with us.
Potty training is different for every child. A child could come in with absolutely, no control over their bladder, and as long as that's not a medical issue, then we can certainly approach it behaviorally and give them the tools they need to be successful, just like any other skill that we would teach.
Well, we think he's learning to pee on a potty. No big successes yet, and lots of accidents. Here is the laundry from today.
For some of our kids takes, just a couple days. And then for other kids, it can take months and months and months. And then when you're looking at complete independence, it can take years.
Hey, you have to go pee-pee?
There's a lot of different ways to tell if a child is ready. We look for a couple different things. Probably the most important is parents saying, I need this to happen, I'm ready. Second is, a child showing interest in the bathroom, and some of it is simply age. It's time to go ahead and work on this.
What are you doing? Pooping. You're pooping?
You first start with teaching the child what they need to do on the toilet. The basic thing we want is for them to drink as much liquid as possible. It's inevitable that if you drink a bunch of liquid, you're gonna pee.
No, I can't help you pee. I can hold your hand, but I can't help you pee.
Ultimately, what we want is that, the child, as soon as they're put on the toilet, they urinate. So that's step one. Step two is usually working through the amount of time that they're off of the toilet and making sure that they're not having accidents during the time that they're off. So this is kind of the bladder control stage of things.
So the purpose of the potty log is just to see how long it takes them as soon as they sit on the potty for them to actually urinate, and the amount of time that he's able to hold his urine. And with the log, we're able to visually see how long it takes them each time, and if they have accidents or not. He's on a half-hour potty schedule, so if he doesn't go when we take him, then we have to take him in 10 more minutes. So every 10-minute intervals until he does go, and then we reset the clock, and it's 30 minutes again.
Okay, buddy. Okay, last chance to go pee-pees. Do we reset it for 10?
Oh, what does that mean? What does that mean, Jack? It's potty time! We can come play after. Hurry!
What we hope happens in this time is that the kids will learn how to initiate going to the bathroom on their own. This is oftentimes the hardest part of potty training, is because they get so used to somebody telling them when they need to go that they're not really recognizing the signs just in their own body of when they need to go.
Uh-oh, he wet himself.
Uh-oh. Big wet?
Was it a lot? We can reset to half an hour now.
The biggest thing for parents is not to give up. The other big tip, and I think pitfall that a lot of parents fall into, is putting their children back into pull-ups or diapers, especially if they're starting to have accidents. And this is probably the worst thing that you can do. They need to recognize that feeling of fullness in their bladder and take themselves to the bathroom, or tell an adult that they need to go to the bathroom.
What do you have to do? You have to put your pee-pee in the potty. Okay, give it a shot. See if you can put it in there. There you go. There you go. You're doing it. Yay, job. Big prayer for your pee-pee. Big prayer for your pee-pee. Yay! Woo! Yay! Good job. What a big boy. High five, high five, high five, high five, high five, high five, high five.
Welcome back. I love the cheering for the potty, and now we're back here cheering for other things, for games, because we have with us, joining us via Skype, Brian Turtle from Endless Games. If you watch this show, you know that Brian is a regular with us. We absolutely adore him because he makes cool games, endless cool games. So Brian, welcome back. This is our first day of the Festival of Toys 2016.
Well, I'm happy to be here. Endless Games is always a proud supporter of you, Shannon, and of the Festival of Toys.
Well, we love you guys, and for so many different reasons. I want to launch into one of them right away. Nancy and I have out before you a game called Cornered, and things are going to look a little funky on our screen just because we work on a green screen. So everywhere you see black is actually green, and it might even be see-through. Yeah, can you see that it's kind of see-through? But in any case, this is a really cool game, and this is kind of how Brian and I came to know each other, because Brian, tell us a little bit of the background for Cornered, because this was not something that you guys invented thinking, oh, kids with autism will be great at this, right?
That was never the intention. It was one of those happy accidents, I suppose. But at Endless Games, we've been making games since 1996. And at one point, an inventor, a guy by the name of Brad Ross, presented this game to us. And it was basically the game that has become Cornered. His original concept was really the same idea, the board of a color grid, and then these tiles that you would play on the board where the colors would match the four corners. Now, what the happy accident part of the story is that I was playing the game with my niece, who has Asperger's and is on the spectrum, therefore, and she was great at it. I was having a heck of a time trying to find where on the board this puzzle piece could match the four colors of the game board and where I could play it so that it matched the game board. Meanwhile, my niece had already played 10 pieces, 10 tiles by that point. So it really kind of opened my eyes to the fact that, hey, maybe this game does play to the strengths of individuals who are on the spectrum. And so we wound up taking it out to some other families that we knew who had autistic children or autistic family members. And it was consistent across the board where I guess you would say the neurotypical players were consistently losing to the players on the spectrum. So it was a really neat way to be a real confidence booster for my niece especially, who wasn't always the most outgoing, and would rather do a jigsaw puzzle than play a board game because the social anxiety and whatnot. When she played Cornered, it really opened her up because she was good at it. It played to her strengths, and she could beat her Uncle Brian. So it was a great happy accident, and it's a lot of fun. Regardless of of whether you're a child of any sort of special needs whatsoever. It's a great family game that anyone can enjoy.
Absolutely. And Nancy and I are going to play a little bit really quickly here while we continue to talk. So this is one of the other things. You can go ahead and turn yours over and start to look. We've got 3 tiles each here. And this is one of the things that I love about Endless Games is that all of the games can be played in multiple different ways. And almost all of the games have a pretty quick finish point, at least for one version of how you play the game. So we can sit here and play with 3 tiles. And so we turn them over and we try to start to find on the board. So I've got one here that's purple and blue on the top and red and yellow on the bottom. Now I can see on the board there's purple and blue.
When you say top, I mean, the top
you can turn it around.
Yeah, it could be top can mean anything, right?
Yeah. So it becomes.
Here's the ingenious element of the game, and I didn't mean to cut you off there, Shannon. But
no, go right ahead.
There's only going to be one location for each individual tile. It may look like that piece in your hand could be played at any number of a different series of intersections. There's only one unique location for each tile that's in the box. So it really is part jigsaw puzzle, part board game, and a great sort of marriage of the two worlds.
Well, and so I just found a place to put the block on that I did, and you put it right in the center there so it matches up and it kind of makes the block almost look invisible. And Nancy just went, oh, how did you do that? But here's the thing, part of how I did it was that I played this with my son.
Right.
And I had a conversation with him, and I said, because he was laying them down
right.
like crazy. He was just so fast. And I said, how do you do that? And he said, oh, I just look for 2 colors because it's easier to look for 2 colors. Now
2 colors that are together.
And then you try to fit the other 4 in. But here's the thing about it is that everybody has a different method. And we played this with Wyatt, Nancy's son, and he was super fast at it too. But I think his technique was different. So it can be really fast, and you can do turns, or you can do it all at the same time. You can do just 3 tiles. You can do 10 tiles. You can do the whole box. Look at you.
No.
You're close. You're very close, though. But the first time I played it with my husband and my son, and my son, it was just crazy. He was just slapping them down, and I was going, what just happened? Then I found 1 or 2, and I went, oh, okay, I'm starting to get it. And my husband was pulling up the rear. He was like, man, how'd you do that? But it really exercises a part of your brain that's different than what you're using all the time. And I think it's lovely, but you can be working on winning and losing. You can work on turn taking. You're working on colors. You're working on visual perception. You're working on flexibility because you have to turn the block to get it to fit in sometimes. Great game. And there's the self-confidence factor because when they're super good at it and other people aren't, as Brian said, it really adds to the entire thing.
Right.
So Nancy's still puzzling.
I'm still
now you were fast yesterday.
I was
you
fast
really
yesterday, but today I'm.
You got the hot lights on you.
I'm looking for purple and yellow.
That's it. It really. Some days you'll nail them all real quick, and other days it's almost impossible to figure it out. So it's a unique game playing experience that very rarely plays in any way similar to the way you played it the last time.
And I really love that because a lot of times we were talking about this yesterday, Nancy and I, that when a kid doesn't already love games, and for our kids who are on the autism spectrums, that is usually the norm.
Yeah.
To them, it feels like work. It feels like punishment, whatever. But what we do is we set up the table and get a box, and get several games on the table. We pick one to start. We always have a good snack that's on the table, something that's really reinforcing to drink, and we bring the silly as parents. And so we make it fun, and within 30 seconds, everybody starts to get involved. But this game, I would play this with you for like another 3 minutes, and then I would go, okay, we're done with Cornered, and I would take the next game.
Okay.
And start to play that, because what our kids learn is, oh, this is fun. It's not the sitting down to play, there are some games that are out there that are all-night games.
Right.
You have to be hardcore to want that. That's not what we're playing with our kids. These are fast, they're fun, and then they're colorful, and you move on to the next one.
And you know what? You kind of make you're getting your.
I got one. Ha!
Yeah, she got one, Brian.
Yay!
Terrific. Nice work, Nancy. One of the points, though, that you were sort of heading towards, Shannon, was that the kids are used to playing with the games they're already familiar with, and whether it's that one game we all know that takes 7 hours to play, or whichever, in a lot of cases, it's more on the parents, because I think the parents don't want to have to read lengthy instructions and learn a new board game and then teach it to their children. So at Endless Games, we do try to develop games that you can be playing within 30 seconds, and they're not difficult, and it gives you a chance to try something different than the 5 or 6 games that seem to be in everybody's game closet. So we do encourage you to try some of these other new products and not just keep breaking out the same old, same old.
And Cornered, I want to say too, is fabulous because this is a game that you can work on with kids that are nonverbal or pre-verbal. And you have an age on the box, Brian, that I think it says 8 and up. But for our kiddos who are on the spectrum, I think you can get this game for 5 and up.
It's a tricky world when you're trying to come up with the age range, because you don't want it to seem too juvenile. So I agree with you that certainly 6, 7-year-olds can play Cornered. In fact, my own 7-year-old plays Cornered. So, but at the same time, you don't want to sort of play to too low of an age grouping where you might lose the 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old kids. So,
Exactly. This is fun. This is a great game to have at holidays, and everybody can play. Grandma can sit down and play this with your kiddo who's on the spectrum, and they'll have a ball. And your kiddo on the spectrum will beat Grandma, and everyone will be thrilled. Okay, so I'm going to move on to best of the worst, Brian.
Sure.
I'm going to have you talk a little bit about this, and then we'll play for a quick second.
Okay, so here's what's going on with best of the worst. This is a game that really celebrates those moments in life that aren't always the best. In fact, they're your worst moments in life. The point of the game is that you're going to go around a game board, and I have the big game board here. I can show you in a minute. But as you go around the game board, you draw scenario cards, and they can say your worst day at work, or the worst nickname you've ever had, or the worst place you found a hair that was not your own. So these are instances in life, bad day at school, bad day at the office, bad time in a public restroom, whatever. And we've all had these bad experiences, and usually in that moment, it's the worst. But as you get past that moment, there's usually a pretty good story to go along with it. So it's really all about who has the best story from that worst bathing suit worn or seen, or who has the worst story for your worst trip to the dentist. So really, it's a storytelling game where I'm going to share my worst time at the dentist, and then I want to hear your story, Shannon, and I want to hear Nancy's story, and the rest of the players are going to judge who had the best, worst trip to the dentist or time at the, in the office, whatever.
And one of the cool things I think about this is that you can tell a true story, and you get extra points for telling the true story if your story wins, but you can also make a story up. So think about all the things that we're working on here, you guys. This is for our kiddos who are a little bit older, a little bit more verbal, but we're working on socialization skills. We're working on what's appropriate, that they can be making up a story. They're working on, all of the socialization of, we work on white lies, because it's important to be able to tell a white lie for safety purposes. So they're working on imagination to make up a story and be believable. But they're also looking at you when you tell a story to see, do I believe her? How amazing is that skill for our kiddos? Because we know that there are people who take advantage of them in life, so that they begin to look, but it's in a very safe setting that we're going to pretend. Can we play for a second, Brian?
Sure. I don't know which card you are.
I've got a card that says things you've thrown at someone or had thrown at you.
Okay.
And so I've got a story.
You want to read the card as your worst things you've thrown at someone or have had thrown at you.
Okay, so your worst thing that you've thrown at someone or had thrown at you. So I've got a story. At Easter dinner once, I threw a fork at my brother-in-law's head, and it hit him, and he still has a little bit of a scar on his forehead. And he's now my ex-brother-in-law. Can't imagine why. But yes, I threw a fork at him.
Can I ask what precipitated it?
I believe it was something where we were talking about something in the environment, and he told me I could go freeze in the dark with all the snow owls. And I flung the fork at him.
Okay.
I thought that was justified. It's still something that's talked about in the family. So that's my story. Now, do you believe that that's true?
Well, Nancy, would you like to try to match that story, and I'll judge, or should I tell a story of the worst thing that's been thrown at me or that I've thrown, and you can judge whether Shannon or I, which one of us had the best story?
Do you want to tell a story or listen to a story?
I can tell a story.
All right,
about
she's got a story for you.
something that was thrown at me.
Okay.
I love horses, and I've been around horses a lot. And there was one time, I don't think horse poop smells very bad. It's mostly made of grass. I think it smells actually quite good. And I was telling Wyatt, that my son, that I think all things about horses smell good. And he picked up some horse poop and threw it at me.
In the face?
Yeah.
Ooh!
So I don't know. Horse poop in the face.
Horse poop in the face.
Wow.
That's pretty
So
bad.
that was thrown at me.
Okay, Brian, which is the best story?
So first off, I kind of, as much as I love a good horse poop flinging story, I'm going to go with Shannon's story of throwing a fork at her ex-brother-in-law. Just because I think there's so many layers to that, and it had a good sense of danger involved.
Yes.
And now, I would also be required to play whether I think it's a true story or a bogus story, and because there was so much detail, and you sold me on it, Shannon. So I believe that it's a true story, and your story was the best of the worst.
Thank you, and it is a true story. So I would get to move an extra space because of that.
That's
correct?
Right. Yes.
It is a true story. Unfortunately. It's a true story. But great game, because you were also working on storytelling skills. You know, we talk all the time about all the things that we've got the board too, Brian. It's awesome.
Cool.
But we always are talking about when our kids tell stories, sometimes they don't tell the important details. They leave things out. So you're working on saliency. We're working on what are the important details that you have to tell. This is a great game. This is a perfect game for somebody my son's age, and really for Wyatt's too, to be able to tell a story and make it up. Creativity. I love this game, Brian.
Now, honestly, going back to the age grading, we do put 14 and up on this one.
Yeah.
And you could play this game with any member of the family. Our own personal opinion was that if you're 13 or younger, you shouldn't have any bad experiences.
And for those of you who are like, well, but my kid couldn't do that. Very frequently when we sit down to play a game for the first time, it's a skill that my son isn't good at or maybe can't even do. That's the game to play, you guys, because if you're making it fun and everybody else is playing at the table, you do need to have a couple of people to play with you. It makes it fun for them. Okay, I don't need to take this out. I don't know why I did that. The next one I want to play is, I love this one, Brian, Oddly Obvious.
Yep, my personal favorite.
Okay. Now, and this is a game that can be played in a lot of different ways too. I know you guys have great instructions, but there are so many things that you can do with this game with kiddos who are on the spectrum.
Great for kids to learn synonyms, antonyms, and
puns and thinking differently with language. So, Brian, give us our explanation about what this game is.
Okay, so basically the game is a series of cards like these that have clues on the back, and then the whole answer pool on the front of the card. So what happens is one player is the host or the reader, and that player would read off the clues, and then everyone else playing would have to be the first to shout out the corresponding answer from the front of the card. But it's not obvious. The name of the game is Oddly Obvious for a reason. It's because the clues are punny and have sort of hidden meanings in the words there, and are very riddle-like, almost like doing like sort of crossword puzzle-like with the clues. For example, one of my favorites is right here on the box. You can actually play the game box, which is pretty cool, but there's a question on the back that says, what word on the front of the box corresponds to the clue army animal? And the answer is octopus, because it has 8 arms, it's army.
See, I didn't get that.
You can't really think in that sense of, you know, what is an army animal, an ant or a tank, or what am I looking for here? You have to sort of think outside the box in that regard. So,
and I just got to say this, for our kiddos who are on the spectrum, if you have verbal kids who are on the spectrum and you know they've acquired language, but we need to get them to be using language flexibly. This has been one of the greatest things that I have done with my son, to get him to use language flexibly, because he doesn't realize we're working on anything while we're playing it. And and he now makes puns, he uses figurative language. People ask me all the time, how do you do that? We did some lessons in skills and we played Oddly Obvious. I'm telling you, it's great.
Yeah, my 9-year-old daughter is constantly coming up to me with new clues, and one of the ones that may actually make it into the next edition of the game, she came up with, the clue was Little Pepsi, and the word she wanted to put on the front of the card was Minnesota. Minnesota.
I love them. They're so clever.
Yeah, that's very
okay,
cute.
so we're going to play really quickly. Nancy and I have not looked at the back of this card. So, Brian, give us a clue.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to say, what word on the front of this card corresponds to the clue, harder to see as it grows?
Harder to see as it grows. Harder to see as it grows.
Oh, darkness.
That's right, darkness.
Darkness.
So you would win one of these chips that come with the game, and you want to be the first to have the most chips after 5 clues. So we'll do another clue real quick. Here's how to make a feather pillow.
I think I know.
You're beating me on all this.
Well, because my kid does these kinds of jokes all the time now.
Well,
I think
the pillow will be made of down.
Right.
Download. That's what I was going to say, but I didn't know about
No.
load.
Yeah.
Right.
It's so clever. But also, if you, I'll tell you honestly, when Jem was younger and we weren't getting some of the puns, you have to make it fun for them and have ways. So he was reading, and so we would just have him find the word on the page. So find download because it's got all these other letters, or find the word that starts with a D that's in red. Like, there's so many ways that you could use this with a child of so many different skill levels.
Right, that's a great idea, Shannon.
And then you end up talking about the meaning of words.
You're always thinking of all these new ways to play the game, Shannon. I'm going to consult with you on all of our game development.
Please, I want to come and play in the shop. That's what I want to do. I live to be able to do that. So we've got a bunch of other games here, and we're starting to run low on time. We're going to take a quick, short break, and then we're going to come back and open some more games. But first, before we go, Brian, where can they find Endless Games?
Best bet is to come to endlessgames.com. You can contact us right there at our webpage. You can find out more about each one of these games there at our webpage. You can buy these games there at our webpage. So best bet's endlessgames.com. You can also like us on Facebook. We're on Twitter and Instagram and all the other social media sites. So come check us out. We even have a YouTube channel for Endless Games. So yeah, we're all over the internet. That's the best place to get us.
All right, short break while we get out some more games. Stick with us. More coming up. Welcome back. We're so excited because we have Brian Turtle from Endless Games who's on Skype with us. We've been playing games. I love to play games. This is my favorite thing. And you know, sometimes when we don't know what to do with our kids, this is exactly what to do with our kids. And I love Endless Games because I encourage you to not just get one, get 3, 4, or 5, because you get them out and you don't have to play the same game a million times or for 3 hours. But these are games that honestly, it's crazy to me. It's like a Vulcan mind meld. They invented these games not knowing the kinds of things that we work on with our kids, but they make it fun, the exact same things that we work on. Which, Brian, our next thing that we want to talk about, you've got 2 different versions of Name 5. And this kills me because there is a whole lesson about naming 5 things. This is something that you do in ABA therapy.
Again, that was news to me. And it really just sort of stumbling into all these fortunate instances that sort of cross over all these educational lines and keep things fun at the same time.
Absolutely. Yeah, talk a little bit about these games.
Well, we've got 2. We have the original Name 5 game here, and now our new Name 5 Pop Culture Edition, which is brand new for 2016. So what Name 5 is, basically, was a game that some friends and I used to play long before we had developed it into a board game, just sort of a kind of long car ride type trivia game sort of a thing where we'd say, can you name 5 songs by the Beatles? And then one guy would sort of time another player and they'd try to rattle off as many songs as they could. And then it would be name 5 movies starring Tom Hanks. And so we sort of took that and developed that into what was the original Name 5 game. And this encompassed everything from music and movies, and it also would have things like name the 5 Great Lakes or name 5 contiguous U.S. states. So then it invited in some geography, maybe some U.S. history, some world history, and it really was a great all-encompassing board game. In fact, Name 5 is one of our all-time bestsellers at Endless Games, but it inspired us to take out some of that geography and some of that history and break out the all pop culture version of Name 5, which, like I said, is brand new for this year, for 2016. And this one is really all about those questions about 5 songs by the Beatles, 5 movies starring Tom Hanks, but also it's got things in here that are pop culture driven, such as name 5 memorable characters from commercials. So now you'll think of, some of the television commercials you might see. For some reason, I'm thinking of the woman who used to say, "Where's the beef?"
Me too. That was my first thing. Yes.
I guess that's the one that pops in everybody's head.
Yeah.
But so what you want to do is, like some of the other games, you're going against the clock in Name 5. So actually, unlike the other games we've played so far, but you're trying to rattle off 5 answers to the category within 30 seconds. So it adds that layer of tension in trying to race against the clock, but also the fun of thinking about those commercials or about those movies or songs or whatever the case may be, and coming up with 5 answers to complete the challenge.
Yeah, and what I love about this, again, you can play it in so many different ways. We have taken this in the car before and just not played with the board and done exactly what you were saying. We pull out the cards because I run out of things to ask. But anybody who's done ABA with your child, they teach categories. So they'll teach them all the different musical instruments, and first they have a prompt and they show a card and they show them all the musical instruments, and then eventually, they'll say to them, name 5 musical instruments, right? And they have to be able to say them, and then they try to add it into real life situations. Well, this makes it much more fun, and they're playing with other people. It doesn't feel like therapy. And the categories are widely different. I would say if you have a younger kiddo on the spectrum, get the Name 5, the original one.
Right.
But if you have a teenager, especially those Aspie teenagers that they're working with socialization,
Aspie teenagers, I think.
this absolutely Name 5. But here's the other thing. Even if you have a kid who doesn't know much about pop culture, here's what you do. You play in teams. So Jem and I would be on a team together, and you and Wyatt would be on a team together. And you turn over the egg timer, and suddenly there's this thing about immediacy. And in ABA, when we finish off any lesson, there's a whole bunch of different ways that we teach something. But the last lesson that we teach is fluency with a lesson, which means that you're doing it fast and appropriate and getting it right, but doing it fast and accurate. So you turn over this timer, and I say to you, name 5 things that teens do with their phones, and you say, they play games. And then Wyatt comes up with something, and you're helping each other, and you can be prompting him. it really gets them to the point where they can play on their own.
Okay.
It's a really amazing thing to be able to do. I love the team play especially. So great games. Again, Brian, where do they get them? Oops, did we lose him?
You guys there?
Yeah, we're here. Do you have us? Can you hear us?
Hello, Brian.
If you can still hear me, great. I kind of lost my audio on my end.
Oh, okay. We're going to move on to, when you can hear us, let us know when you can.
Do you want to play one of the pop culture?
Okay, let's play.
We're going to play one, Brian.
Okay, I don't want to pick ahead.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
here's one that our kids would like.
Okay.
Name 5 characters from SpongeBob SquarePants.
Okay, yeah.
So SpongeBob, Sandy, Peach. What's the name of the guy who owns the restaurant?
The Hamburger Shack.
Yeah, right. I can't think what his name.
know,
Mr. Krabs.
Mr. Krabby.
Mr. Krabs.
And Skull. Who's the one that looks like Squidward.
Squidward. There we go. I think we got 5, right? And Pearl. Pearl's the daughter of. And we still haven't done Patrick, the star.
And Patrick,
okay,
of course. How can we
All
leave
right.
him out?
No, I know the big
Did you
star.
guys lose me there for a second?
We did lose you for
but
a
we
second.
went ahead and played pop culture. Name 5.
Cool. I think I heard the end of it of the characters from SpongeBob.
That's
right?
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
And just another quick point there, Shannon. And
Yes.
you may have made this point. I think you were saying about how you guys just like to play a lot by just by breaking out the cards. And
Yes.
these are great icebreakers, great after Thanksgiving dinner or after Christmas dinner sort of quick playing tools here, just the cards themselves. But I do love the game board here, which is also sort of small and travel sized, but it's reminiscent of like an 80s arcade game type of a look. So
Absolutely.
I was happy with the way that the game board itself for Name 5 Pop Culture turned out as well.
It's really cool. Now we want to take because we're running out of time here, but I want to talk about 60-second slam first.
Yeah, cool. Okay, and this game plays super fast. In fact, it plays in 60 seconds. So
I love it.
Yeah, so that's basically 60-second slam is like a lot of category-based games, or basically what it is the game we play on long car rides, my kids and I. We call it the alphabet game, where we'll say something like things in a supermarket, and my one daughter will have letter A and say apples, my other daughter says B, bananas, and I say C, carrots, and on we go, try to cover every letter of the alphabet. 60-second slam is the same exact concept. You have score pads that have all the letters A through Z, and then you have a 60-second timer, sand timer, once again, element of putting you on the clock, and then you draw a card. And this one here, you would have the choice of board games or Christmas carols. And say if we were doing board games, we'd put us on for 60 seconds, and then everyone playing would, in 60 seconds, write down as many board games, one for each letter. So you wouldn't have to go in alphabetical order, but you could just put one for, whatever letter you came up with. Name 5, password, Family Feud. As you write them down, you cross off the letter, and then at the end of 60 seconds, whoever has the most unique answers is the winner of the round.
Love it. And this is a great game for all of our kids. It teaches flexibility of thinking. We're looking at the alphabet. You can play this in teams as well, too. For the kid who needs a jump start to be able to do. There's something that happens with our kiddos, even on the spectrum, when you turn over a timer and the energy goes up and they get that. They get that something's happening and that they're a part of something and they get excited about it. It's a really fun thing. I always say, bring the silly. And one of the best lessons that we do when as parents, that we model the behavior of being willing to throw something out and fail. Games are a great way to teach our kids how to be good losers, that there's perspective, that you're not always going to win without it hurting their feelings, that it gives them that base of that. So I love these kinds of games.
Yes, and again, all these play within 30 seconds or so. You can get through the rules and you're knee-deep in the fun very quickly.
Yes. So let's talk a little bit about the card games, because I love the card games too, because not only are we working on all the cognition skills with card games, but we're also working on fine motor, being able to teach our kids how to hold cards in their hand. It's a skill. It's a skill and our kids need it. So let's.
So the first one is red light, green light, 1, 2, 3. This one is for ages 5 and up, so I figured I'd start with the lower end. And basically, it's a game where everyone's dealt 7 cards, and the cards have 1s, 2s, 3s, and red lights and green lights on them. And on your turn, you can play as many cards as possible as long as you play in the order of red light, green light, 1, 2, 3. So maybe on my turn, I have a red light and a green light and a 1, but I don't have a 2, so my turn ends there. So maybe then Nancy's up next, and she has 2, and she doesn't have a 3 card. So then it goes to Shannon, and she plays her 3 card, and then it rolls back over to red light, green light, and then red light for you, and then back to me. So really, it's all about being out of your cards first, but staying in sequence of red light, then green light, then 1, 2, and then 3.
And just so people know, sequencing is on the first, it's on kindergarten curriculum. The kids need to be able to sequence the first this, then this. So depending on where your skill level is, you could start this game as early as 3 years old. And it is a great skill that helps to prepare them for kindergarten. Now, if you have a second grader that's still working on sequencing, like we can all get emotional about that and that feels bad, but just work on it. And then your child will be able to get it. And this is a great way to work on sequencing. And then last, but certainly not least, you have Ochos Locos.
That's right, which is basically a literal translation of Crazy Eights.
Okay.
And Crazy Eights is really sort of the game that basically Uno is a derivative of Crazy Eights. So it's a series of number cards, and we also put the Spanish translation because Ochos Locos, as I said, is Crazy Eights in Spanish. So we have an English and Spanish game here. We've got rules in Spanish. We have cards that show the number and the Spanish translation of that number. And what you're trying to do, as in a game like Uno or in Crazy Eights, is you're trying to match the number or the color of the card that was played previously. And instead of how Uno has certain cards like a draw 2 or a reverse, Ochos Locos, we have different hot pepper cards that give you certain advantages. A jalapeno card enables me to look at the cards in your hand and swap out one of my bad cards for a card that you may have that I want. The habanero card, it plays sort of like a reversal where we switch direction of the gameplay. And then the poblano card is one that enables the player of this card to, everybody else has to draw a card, and the poblano card gets to play one of their cards. So this is a big advantage here. And like Crazy Eights, you're trying to play all of your cards first. Oh, and of course, because they're crazy, locos, actually, the 8s are wild.
Wonderful. And so, again, working on turn taking, matching numbers, letters, colors, also learning the names of these things in Spanish, which we know that for our kiddos on the autism spectrum, learning other languages is beneficial. People think that it's not because they're like, oh, if they don't know English, then how we, but it's actually better for them to learn multiple.
My son has an intense interest in language.
Absolutely.
And he's always saying, how do you say so-and-so in French? How do you say so-and-so in Spanish? How do you say, he's obsessed with that, in fact.
And Jem's obsessed with German. I don't know why, but obsessed with German. So good for our kids to be able to get. So Brian, all of these games are great. We want to encourage people to like you guys on Facebook, Endless Games. Visit your website, endlessgames.com. I got that correct?
That's right.
And I know you have to go and we have to go, but Brian, it's never the holidays unless we've had you. I know that you've got some Christmas lights on your shirt. You always bring it.
Yeah, you do.
We got a little holiday flair here. It's still too early for my crazy Christmas sweaters, but we'll get that next time.
All right. The red's working good for you, Brian.
Yeah, looking holidays. Thank you, and thanks to everybody at Endless Games. We appreciate you so much, and we want to encourage people, get these games, get them underneath the tree, get them for Hanukkah. They're fabulous. They help to build strong bonds with the family.
And have work on it with your skills program, or if you have your child's therapist. Like, I get a little overwhelmed by this, but I know that Wyatt's therapist could work on this with him.
And invite friends over. I'm going to play games with Wyatt. Yep. Thank you so much, Brian. Have happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
You too. Thank you.
Now we are right down at the very end, but I want to take a quick second. We just had the one story because
that ties into our Act Today program.
Yes, and we always hate to leave you on a negative note, but on Thanksgiving Day, there was a 9-year-old who went missing in the state of Texas, and he was visiting family for Thanksgiving, and the entire community turned out to try to find this little boy.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, when they did find him, he had already drowned.
Right.
And this happens too much, my friends. And we don't want to leave you with that. We want to leave you with the fact that there's something that we can all do, and we can do it today.
And that something is a new campaign that is called STOP. And that is an acronym. It's Stop Autism Death by Elopement, Secure, Teach, Organize, and Protect. Because we can do all these things through the kind of grants Act Today gives out. We urge you to make a donation. Go to www.act-today.org. Any donation, any amount, you will save the life of a child. And what is a greater gift than that?
We can all make a difference. Do it today, and there is no donation that is too small. We're going to be back tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're really going to dive into play on the show. And for those of you who got the little ones, tomorrow we've got some board games from Peaceable Kingdom that teach social skills and cooperation. So that's going to be our toy of the day tomorrow. We also have Bonnie Yates, special education attorney, who's going to be with us and answer some more questions. Really important stuff. But we're going to pull apart play and why it's important, even if our kids don't like it, to work on it. And to start early and continue all the way through. We're done, but give your kiddos a hug from me.
And give yourselves a hug from me.
Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.